you think of the term welfare queen, you might picture someone like this. But I would like to invite you to the possibility that an actual welfare queen looks like this. Now, don't know what I mean? Let me explain in a segment called How Did We Get Here? In the United States, a lot of people don't like welfare. They think that people who receive welfare are benefiting disproportionately from the money we all pool together as a society to help those in need. And many Americans have the idea that most of the people unfairly receiving that help are people of color. But are they? Let's go back to 1954. It's the year of Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, and equally important, the year peanut M&Ms were invented. Now, Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka was not a versus battle between James Brown and a bunch of Kansas school teachers, although that would be great, and I would watch the butt off of it. Brown versus Board of Education was actually 5 civil rights cases all put together. One of them involved a South Carolina school district that only provided school buses for their white students. The black students had to cross a river and walk up to 16 miles to and from school. It's like if a triathlon was swimming, running, and algebra 2. And instead of medals, you gotta get up and do it again the next day. But here's the important part. It's not just that the education for black kids was unequal. That particular school district was 75% black. So that means black parents' tax dollars were literally being used to build better lives for the white kids. Now, you might call that a unique distribution of funds, but I call it welfare for white people. Because the white kids were disproportionately benefiting from the money that was raised to take care of everyone. Now, in Brown versus Board of Education, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation in public schools was illegal, but that didn't stop white parents from getting their kids more government handouts. Once public schools couldn't be segregated anymore, a lot of white parents started opening private, all-white schools called Segregation Academies, which is the most on-the-nose name I have ever heard. You might as well have called it racist prep. I mean, Segregation Academy? Go ahead and call it On the Ones and Threes Elementary. But the crazy thing about Segregation Academies, aside from the name, is that almost 200 of those schools still exist today. Segregation academies are one of those things that should have disappeared decades ago, but somehow didn't, like low-rise jeans or Bill Maher. Or Bill Maher. And here's the thing. White students are now the minority in public schools. It makes sense. Less than half of the US population under 18 is Caucasian, but private schools are still very white. Like naming your kid Braden White, or pronouncing Target Tarjay White. Like dancing like this white. Like, what is that? What are you doing? Are you feeling a smell? What is this? As of 2017, 67% of private school students were white. That's 2/3. In a nation as diverse as ours, our private schools somehow have the same racial makeup as the triplets on This Is Us. Now, I know what you're thinking. Shouldn't parents be free to send their kids to any school that they can afford? Yes, of course they should. But here's the thing no one mentions. You and I are paying for those schools. In 23 states, your tax dollars are being used to send kids to private and religious schools. In Florida alone, residents pay almost $1 billion a year to send kids to private schools. To put that in perspective, that's slightly more than Florida spends on illegal fireworks and just a touch less than their meth budget. So now we know where to find America's white kids. They're in private school. Meanwhile, 70% of our black children are going to high-poverty public schools, while their parents' taxes are being used to fund majority white private schools. Now, what rubs many white Americans wrong about welfare is the idea that they pay a bunch of money in taxes and then someone else benefits. Meanwhile, black parents are paying taxes so that their kids can go to the school from Lean On Me, while a lot of white kids can go to the school from Dead Poets Society. I'm just taking other people's word there. There's no way I can sit through that movie. But let's be clear. I'm sure it's great, but let's be clear. The problem isn't just the private schools. No, these welfare kings and queens have also found a way to make their public schools whiter through a move called SECESSION. Secession. Through a move called SECESSION. SECESSION is something else. It's a great TV show. It's through a move called secession, and if that word has negative connotations for you, that is because you are a human being with a memory. Secession happens when part of a school district decides to leave the whole. In practice, it's when white people in a district decide they want their own school system. So they create a new one, leaving behind the students of color. The term secession sounds old-timey and historical, but it's something that's actually happening right now. From 2000 to 2017, 47 school districts in the US seceded from larger school districts, and every single one of those new districts is majority white. Basically, the concept of secession is a lot like the TV show Succession. And by that I mean, it's a bunch of greedy white nonsense. So here's the question. If welfare is a small group of people unfairly draining money from the taxes that are collected from everyone, then when it comes to education, who's actually receiving welfare? And who's paying for that welfare? You and I are. And if you're not happy about that, go to your local school board meeting and speak up. But when you walk into that meeting, watch out for welfare queens. No, not her, him. This has been How Did We Get Here?